All right! Welcome to Rockstar! Now, just so you all know, we're going to cover this topic as fast and as completely as we can. Just the way you like it. Thanks for watching!
Chapter 1. Living a Secret. Imagine that your very existence is a secret, that you and your family have to hide in an attic, all day, every day, quiet as mice. In the very early morning, you can make a little noise as you fold up your cots, eat breakfast, and sneak downstairs to use the bathroom, being careful to leave no trace. If you leave just one thing out of place, like hairs in the sink or a scrap of tissue on the floor, if someone finds it and suspects that you're hiding there, it could mean capture and death. Not just for you, but for your mother, your father, and your siblings. You even have to burn your garbage so that no one notices unusual items in the trash outside. Your windows are covered by blackout curtains, all day and all night, to keep the light from the attic from showing to anyone on the street outside. Only occasionally could you open a covered window a crack to get some fresh air. Because there are people working on the floor beneath your attic, and they don't know you exist, during the day you have to pick a spot and sit down with a book or some kind of entertainment, and stay there all day. If you have to stand up and walk around for any reason, it's always barefoot or in socks, taking careful, silent steps. Once the people downstairs leave work, you can speak more normally and move around freely to have dinner, and then exercise or tell stories in the dark at night. Both your dinner and your breakfast are usually unsatisfying meals made from rations that your protectors are able to collect for you. And usually, you're still hungry when you finish eating. Although it might not be much, like potatoes or some canned spinach, a huge system of helpers is needed to get all your food. Your protectors have to find a baker, a butcher, and someone to buy your fruits and vegetables from, who won't question the extra ration coupons during wartime, when food is heavily regulated. If one of your helpers gets sick or arrested, you're in serious danger of starving. And you would live this way for years. Can you imagine not being able to make noise all day? Panicking if you accidentally coughed out loud? Can you imagine not going outside for years, or not having access to doctors? What if you needed glasses or prescriptions? Could you picture not being able to go to the bathroom during the day, and living in constant fear of being discovered? Hearing bombings and air raids happening all around you? Your life would go back and forth, being terrified and then bored again. You would share with 7 people the space of a 2-bedroom apartment, and none of you could ever leave. These 7 people would be your constant company, and if they didn't like you or you didn't like them, if they yelled at you or if they had habits that drove you crazy, that was just too bad. This was the kind of life that a teenage girl named Anne Frank faced. Anne was a Jewish girl who kept a diary while hiding from the Nazis during World War II, when Adolf Hitler ruled Germany. His troops, the Nazis, rounded up Jewish people from every city and every country that Germany conquered, and sent them to concentration camps to be killed. When it became clear that all the Jews in Holland would soon be imprisoned, instead of submitting to capture and death, Anne's father teamed up with 2 of his work partners to prepare a space for the family to hide in, where they could be safe. Anne and her family hid in an attic, called the Secret Annex, in Amsterdam with several other Jewish people living above an office and warehouse. From age 13 to 15, June 1942 to August 1944, Anne recorded the entire experience through daily diary entries which were later published, making her story one of the most well-known examples of courage and hope. It was crucial that no one discovered that their group was hiding in the attic. Their lives literally depended on it, and that only made their life of hiding more difficult and stressful. Thankfully, the group had Anne's father, Otto Frank, who helped the group get along together. He was a strong, friendly man, and a natural peacemaker who was always able to calm Anne down and help the group come to compromises. There was also Anne's mother, Mrs. Frank, who fought all the time with Anne and had a hard time adjusting to their new life. Margot, Anne's sister, was 2 years older and her mother's favorite. Anne wasn't considered to be as pretty or as smart as Margot. Maybe that's why she developed the rich and interesting personality that we see in her diary. Whenever she wrote about them, Anne gave the other members of the secret annex new names to preserve their identities. The real-life Van Pels family became the Van Dans, made up of Mr. and Mrs. Van Daan and their son Peter, who was also 2 years older than Anne. Anne couldn't stand them and would always write about how ridiculous and annoying they were. Later, they were joined by an old man named Fritz Pfeiffer, who Anne renamed Mr. Albert Dussel. Thankfully, he was a dentist and was able to give them all dental treatment, but he only had limited supplies and no painkillers. Anne didn't get along very well with anyone in the secret annex, except her father and her sister, but she didn't always want to share her most personal inner thoughts with them. She was the kind of girl who had a constant inner monologue going. Before the war, she was called a chatterbox in school. In class, she even had to write an essay about being a chatterbox twice, because she just couldn't stop talking. But in the annex, she had no one that she wanted to talk to about private matters, and no one who would want to talk to her all day either. She even wrote at the beginning of her diary, "It seems to me that neither I or anyone else will be interested in the musings of a 13-year-old schoolgirl." If only she knew that her diary would eventually become a bestseller. She solved her chatterbox problem by creating an imaginary friend, Kitty, who she would write to in her diary. If Anne had had the luxury of a normal life, she might not have needed to write everything down, but there wasn't much to do in the annex anyway besides read and write. Thankfully, the whole world benefited from her addiction to talking once her diary was published. During the time she spent in hiding, Anne recorded not only the things that happened in the annex, but also the experience of growing up. She became a very mature person very quickly because of her unique situation, and that made her even more interesting to read. Across different entries in her diary, she described the feeling, saying, "Every day I feel that I'm developing inwardly. Even though I'm only 14, I know quite well what I want, I know who is right and who is wrong, I have my opinions, my own ideas and principles." Anne combined the first-person experience of growing up with the first-person record of being an oppressed Jew during the war, making both accounts seem vivid, real, and timeless. So many of the things she described, like fighting with her mom, feeling misunderstood and trapped, were just like the frustrations teens still go through today. However, she actually was trapped, inside the annex. Side by side with the problems she had in adolescence, she talked about the war and what it meant to her, a real person. It was as if she was writing a letter directly to us, making it funny, touching, sad, and inspiring all at the same time. Eventually, the annex was discovered and its members were sent to concentration camps. Only Otto Frank, Anne's father, would survive. But after he returned to Amsterdam, he published his daughter's diary to share her vibrant strength and her will to live with the world, and to illustrate what the Nazis had done to millions of people just like Anne all throughout Europe. Her diary is introduced to new classes of students every day, and the book goes beyond describing just being a teen or just being Jewish. On its most basic level, it's an exploration of the soul, not a teenage soul or a Jewish soul, just a human one. What is in all of us.
Well, all right. We hope you enjoyed that. You just finished the first chapter of the topic. Now, just so you know, there are 4 more chapters to go in this app, and it will only take you about 45 more minutes to complete, and you are totally done. Now check this out. The app also comes with about 15 pages of analysis and summary that you can download and use any way you need to. Here's what you gotta do. You gotta click the link below and go directly to the Apple app